it's a bit scary to see my name at the end of the program. But it's been really wonderful, and maybe I sort of go backwards. Congratulations to Textile Museum and also Frankie's Museum. It's just wonderful to see how hard they work to bring new material. And for Frankie, I sometimes think for the young visitors, it's like teaching children. You can't tell them this is good for them, right? So you sort of have to hide the piece somewhere, and then somehow they discover it's something interesting. And I was lucky to visit Holland last year. Spent quite some time there, but only one day at the Textile Museum. And so I saw Aura's project there. I saw the Bosch exhibition, and I also saw your work at the Stedelijk Museum, and I actually felt the textiles. And having worked in China in the past few years, there's so much for them to learn about, like from being a classical museum to something that's for the coming centuries. So it's really wonderful to hear your sharing. One thing, I'm trained as a fashion designer. When I started my career, very, very quickly I felt I don't need that, and I went into film costume, which brought me to, when you're a fashion designer, you only care about what's fashionable or perhaps what the market want to buy. But after being in film, suddenly you have to study why people wear that and how they do their laundry, how they take care of their clothing. So in fact, it's very interesting when you talk about communities like Nisho, Nicole, looking at these textiles that people use every day. And in fact, for me, my little ritual, because I don't belong to any religion, is doing my laundry. Washing them, hanging them up if there's sun to see them. It's sort of like reviewing your week. So today I missed my laundry day. Tomorrow I need to do that. It's really like I felt like reviewing what I did for the week. And in the long run, when you decided to discard your garments, maybe you moved on to another life, something like that. And then on the architecture bit, I always felt that with curtains, you can build a little sanctuary for yourself. It's like immediately you get a sense of like a little temple for yourself, and I really like that. So I would perhaps actually like to ask both of you your feeling about the sharing, like these 2 days.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy. Actually, when I was listening to Frankie's presentations, I exactly projected myself on you, because my background is also the contemporary art. And when I was invited to join this project, initially I said they would like to make the interdisciplinary, the museum or contemporary museum. But when I moved here, immediately I recognized they would like to make something to commemorate Hong Kong industrial, textile history. Wow, so that's something, and then I never thought of. So, and also, of course, I can't read some of bit of the Chinese character, but of course, I don't read any, the Chinese, the writing properly. So it's a bit challenging, but on the other hand, when I little bit study about their historical background, and I recognize that that's actually the textile industrial history is really, really transnational. It's related to my cultural background, and also related to the India and the other regions, and from historical aspect to contemporary agenda. So there's a lot of potentials, and also I feel the same. It's quite difficult to build the audience and to connect the audience from different interests. That's that we have to think about how to address. But I'm so happy to have now we have a lot of, the mates to collaborate together.
Yes.
I want to say that when this year, Mizuki and I first visited Netherlands, we visited both Inside Outside and also the Textile Museum in Tilburg. Those two were very transformational experiences for us. And it really helped us to shape of also who we want to be. And in that process of dealing with both of them, we understood and also recognized how important it is to introduce multidisciplinary teams, as well as trying to cross-engage with as many collaborators which bring different fields of knowledge together. Because just like Mizuki has said, she's a contemporary art curator. I was never a curator. So how do we bring that content together by ourselves? We can't create that by ourselves. But we know the people who have that knowledge, that wisdom, that content. So we also have that vision that we are placed to facilitate that to happen. And I really want to thank, the Textile Museum for being such an inspirational space for us, and also Inside Outside for showing us the possibilities that how textiles could be used so differently in spaces. So, thank you.
And it's perfect in Hong Kong. Hong Kong it's very strange because, there's almost no textile art here.
Yes.
Or there's no textile production anymore. But still, it's the crossroad of many cultures and many possibilities. So I think it will be good.
Yeah,
and
everything is a challenge and everything is a chance. Because as you said, there's I'm sorry to say that there's no beautiful silk gown right here, and we don't have that kind of stuff in our collections. But I recognize that Hong Kong textile industry was really supported by entrepreneurship and a challenging spirit, and that's really, I feel that the energies, and then as listening to their people who engage that industry. So, yeah, that's we actually in heart, and then to passing to the next generation.
Maybe I would like to ask about the other speakers, whether you have extra advice for chat.
Yeah, give us.
Maybe this time coming to Hong Kong, maybe you know about Hong Kong, or knows about Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about the place where chat is going to happen is actually the place in the city also. I think you're really going to be pioneers in that area. And we also discussed it already with more of the people invited. It's going to be, it would be great if it's a place that's indeed, let's say, really accessible for everybody. And I can imagine you have that idea as well, but that you also combine also an outdoor space, maybe on the ground floor, maybe really an accessible space where you can already really have a look of what's happening. I'm really interested in how you're gonna show your collection and also your storage. There's also really interesting ways of how to keep that alive instead of in a dark place. So I think those are things that we realize that are happening in the museum world. Actually, there are many people working on that, and also the relation with the site and the DNA of that site and the cotton and the textiles. I think it's really it's great that it's becoming getting a higher ground, a level where you can really be proud and show also kind of the productions and the history, instead of only what we actually know from Hong Kong, that people from Dior and from Prada and so come and get textiles in certain areas where there are many types of textiles. So you have this really commercial feeling when you think about textiles in Hong Kong, in the world. So in that sense, I think it's, I think that image of the history and the past, and also making steps in the future, is really interesting in your, and indeed embrace flexibility, embrace multifunctional spaces, embrace change to happen. So you don't become kind of people that you know, you see sometimes in museums that there's like this tendency to get sometimes stuck a bit, or there's this whole kind of, you know, some things that we just saw in the Stedelijk Museum in Holland, that, you know, it's such a web of people, and you know, once it becomes kind of can become really complicated. There is I don't know if that's correct and if it happens here as well, but we a lot of times there's always a kind of notion or idea of museums sometimes becoming almost like bureaucratic and part of the government, you know, too bureaucratic. And I hope you guys, you know, keep the freshness and the sharpness that you have right now. Yeah.
Just in terms of community engagement, I think it's amazing that you have this gorgeous home, but I guess it's also about maintaining the connections with the community. And, you know, not having a home has meant that you've had to be inventive about where you do things, and I think that's something that would be really amazing to maintain. And some of the most exciting and interesting projects I've worked on are the ones that don't happen inside a building but happen outside or within people's homes or actually inside the community. And I think too, working at a museum, and museums are always interested in or concerned with how to bring audiences in, but it's also like, why do the audiences want to come there in the first place? So it's also like, how do you then create within the community and in spaces other than the physical site of the museum? Yeah.
After this 2-day discussion, I certainly feel strongly your pressure as a chat, like starting here in Hong Kong, that, because you guys are surrounded by a lot of big museums, they're all going to happen in the same year soon. And I wanted to say that actually, to do this kind of program or other kind of workshop program, building your audience or, having this communication with the community, it's something that is really time consuming and, labor work consuming, but you can't see the result instantly. So it feels like you're actually doing a lot, but it's not like you are making a super big international show with 200 different international artists and then, in one night the world knows you. But maybe that's something that is not something you want to do. I feel it might be a very beautiful thing to have an institution like you who are literally like locally, working locally here, but having a lot of international support. But you are actually building this relationship, if we are talking about relationship. So it's a real relationship for me, I guess. So there's a nice thing to do. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I can add one thing. 2018 will be the most important year for us to develop and make our plans more concrete for the innovation of the museum. We are really happy to share, but we also would like to invite you to reflect on that, because I strongly believe in reflecting on each other can help both of us. Yes. So I want to add that.
Any audience have any comments? Janice?
Well, I would like to make one. Hold on. It's to congratulate everybody. It's been really very stimulating. And I think you mentioned multidisciplinary teams, which I think if you've come out of individual art practice is also a challenge, but a great opportunity. And having worked with various studios and labs in another part of one's educational life, the benefits are quite enormous. And I think you worked in film, so you understand, or in architectural practices, and in community practices, the skill sets of sharing soft skills, sometimes the intangibles, are the most powerful. I think as we have museums without walls, which is entre malheur, I worry terribly about academies and institutions of education who have still remained rather tight-lipped and isolated. And I think they are sort of duplicating sometimes the idea of the incubator, the maker lab. And it seems to me that and we've always had enormous respect for what's happened in the Netherlands. You've had great cultural policies over the years, which I think many could learn from. But I think that bridge you talk about is absolutely crucial. And so while many of our higher education institutions are desperately building, you know, a science park, a lab, this, that, and the other, what they forget is what is on their doorstep, which is absolutely a profound local resource. It could be photographic, it could be material, and I think it's incredibly interesting you have an anthropologist. I do a lot of work with anthropologists who are so used to working in fields and communities of practice that the best of them are just extraordinary, as is sociologists. But I wish, and somehow we could get the universities and the higher education institutes much more fluid and much more open. So in fact, they don't have to have a maker's lab. They can connect as a bridge to what other people are doing. And the same is true if you're making film, whatever practice it is, because actually it's about territorial ownership. And you're right, it's a competition for different kinds of funding, which I don't think needs to happen. Personally, and I've spent, how long have I spent in higher education? Nearly 40 years. And I still haven't broken it down, to my great sadness.
Yeah, may I add to that, Janice? That's why I talked about that network organization, because I strongly believe in that. Everybody is doing the right thing, but we have to cooperate with each other in a better way. And then it's also financially efficient. And for that reason, we started to work together with the Design Academy in Eindhoven to do the minor for them. Because I strongly believe in that. That's for both parties, it's the best of it. So we have...
Feel more open,
yeah.
to be honest.
Well, I think with the two of you and combining your two qualities together will be amazing. And I strongly believe that cultural institutes need to, I said it yesterday, need to embrace the economic domain. I mean, I'm shaping an education now, and I don't want to educate people who will be reliant on subsidies for the rest of their lives. And that's something that I'm really struggling with, and I need help with, and I want support with. And I think you all can be incubators, and that's the part that I will talk to you in private about. But no, but I believe we need to empower ourselves and our communities to be economically autonomous and not reliant on subsidies and all those kind of things. And we can do that in beautiful and socially responsible ways. And that's what we need to start inventing, actually.
And Pascal, that's also, I think, a partly solution on that censorship story. If you can deal by yourself with public money and with money you earn by yourself, nobody's going to tell you what to do.
And it's also the way in which you naturally reach out to the community, because then there's no walls so much anymore, because the economy is all pervasive, as we know. But now we constantly evade talking about it. But once we start embracing it, maybe it starts to become something that is only about abundance and not about scarcity anymore. Hopefully. So I have big hopes for the two of you together, actually.
Because I don't have any doubt on it.
This may not be right on the issue, but I was curious. There is certain trend in, of course, public institutions like museum. And I saw that in Holland, my colleagues in Holland were really disgusted by the way the government treated the Tropen Museum, which was an incredible institution, was dismantled. And so it seems like in different parts of the world, ethnography seems to be out of fashion in a way that they have been continuing. But they weren't as clever as well. You maneuver well, but they haven't recreated themselves. But still, ethnography is so important for us. What do you make out of that?
Yeah, that's why I also started in my presentation with the repositioning of the museum in a broader sense. not only in a cultural way, but also in an economic way, in a social way, talk about sustainability. When you do so, you have much more people who will support you because you have more values for society. And I think that will be a key for making museums more autonomous, more independent, because you then not only have to deal with the cultural affairs minister or the local government who is dealing for such a small part with cultural money. Focus on broadening on these values. That will make you more independent. And it also goes for the other museums. I'm in a position because of the lab, it's more easy, I agree on that, but I really am convinced that much more museums can do in a similar way, is hope.
Is it time to wrap up?
I think people are hungry.
Thank you for the amazing time.
And I also like to, Mizuki and I would like to thank all our speakers who've flown from all over the world to share their wisdom and their knowledge and experience with us. And encouraging words. So thank you again, and thanks to all the audience who've come to join us. So we'll see you again very soon, and we'll do Textile Series 3.0 next year. And have another engaging conversation. And yes, and the contemporary art exhibition in spring.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
In March.
Yes, and we're moving in next year, in the middle of the year. So we'll have also a soft opening to manage around summertime. So a lot is ahead of us. But thank you so much for encouraging us and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you.
Let's get work together.
And if you are still in Hong Kong on the 15th, do come to the opening, 6:30, for the Junichi Araya show.